important to you in your life when you think about these people who are fighting that kind of underbelly nature of things?
Well, two things. I thought about that when I looked at some of my movies. Like, man, why do I like this? Why do I have this attraction to gangster movies? And there's a couple of reasons. Number one is the underworld, I guess you could call them, the mafia.
Yeah.
They were very committed to each other.
Wow, interesting. That is
Matter
really
of fact,
good.
more so than the church.
Yeah.
More so than almost any organization.
Interesting. Wow. So that value of commitment kind of transcends, the drugs and all that kind of stuff because it's a commitment. It's surprising Godfather's not on here.
And I started to put that. It almost made it. It almost made it. Just wasn't quite action-packed enough, but Godfather was probably number 11.
Wow, I'm totally seeing this theme of commitment like you're talking about. That's the people being very committed to each other.
Yes.
I can see that. I can see that with what's forged out of Remember the Titans, right?
That's right.
And then what's happening with this troop in Glory that is totally committed to each other, even against all odds, like you said.
Exactly right.
That's interesting.
So commitment to the cause, commitment to each other, being willing to die for the cause.
Yeah, true.
Is another thing, or to be, or to really have your life altered by the cause, whether it was a racial issue, whether it was love, like in Notebook, because that lady had to walk away from a guy. And of course, this was her first love. She had walked away from him, and of course they kind of I forgot exactly the details, but they got separated. And then of course she got engaged to a well-to-do guy.
Exactly.
And everything was going fine. And then of course she finds out that her first love is still alive and moved back into the city. So she had a decision to make.
Oh, I can see this. I can see it totally. That idea of commitment. I mean, that's what you see in the older characters too. That here he is, still committed to her, day after day, coming back and trying to get her to understand the story of her life, and being by her side all the way to the end.
Yeah.
That's huge there. I can see that. Yeah.
And then Eddie Murphy's character in Coming to America, the way the movie ends is he marries this lady from America, but his parents were against it because in Africa, where he was supposedly from, they arranged marriages.
Yeah.
So he had to stand up and really follow his heart. So there is a theme of great commitment.
Yeah, a couple of things I want to talk about as far as your passion and your calling in your story specifically. I know that you have two films that have football in them, Jerry Maguire and Remember the Titans. And I know that you're currently you're the executive director of FCA. And tell me a little bit about sports in your life and how it has intertwined with your life.
Wow, without sports, I wouldn't be the man I am today.
Really?
First of all, I committed my life to Christ through a ministry called Fellowship of Christian Athletes when I was 18 years old, which I'm now the executive director in Atlanta. But not only that, sports taught me courage, discipline,
there it is
hard
again,
work. There it is again.
Yeah.
All of those things, teamwork.
Yeah.
Even some of the principles in some of these movies, like The Untouchables and Scarface, they're just certain. Nobody can talk about your team. I mean, you will go to bat for your team and your coaches. And some of these gangster type movies, it was the same kind of loyalty that they had toward one another.
That's good.
And so sports played a huge role in my life, teaching me about everything from diversity. It's amazing. When I went to the University of Tennessee in the late 70s, I was a freshman in the fall of 79, in our lunchroom where all the athletes ate, we had our own dormitory. It was racially divided. All the white guys ate on one side and all the black guys ate on the other side.
What year was this?
This was 1979.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and some of 1980.
Wow.
And I was the one who broke that up.
Really?
Yeah, one of my best buddies was a white guy, and we would normally go through the line together, and then he would go to the white side, I would go to the black side. Now, we didn't have to do that. It was just the way it was. And I went and sat on the white side, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So, but through sports, it's like, well, how could we be teammates on the field and give our all for each other, and then off the field not want to be around each other?
So, wow, that really parallels Remember the Titans in a big way. I mean, this is a movie that's almost like the movie that you lived, where you broke ranks and brought together this team as far as an integrated whole,
Yes, I did.
That's pretty cool. So as far as the movie is concerned, would you say you see yourself as obviously because you look like Denzel, you have to say you see yourself as the coach probably. But I'm curious because you were a player. Do you see yourself in that movie more as the player or more as the coach?
Well, I saw myself really more as the coach, even though I was a player and I've never been a college coach or anything or a high school coach. Yeah. But I saw myself more as a coach because it was the coach's job to bring the two groups together and to be the reconciler, if you will. Yeah. And so that was kind of how God used me all throughout college with my teammates. I came from a predominantly all-black environment. Yeah. And then I was thrust into the University of Tennessee, predominantly Caucasian environment. Yeah. And then, of course, seeing all the separate lives, how they lived outside of the football field. Mm-hmm. And I was the guy that kind of helped bring people together.
That's awesome. Yeah. Wow. So tell me about, I'm looking at Jerry Maguire and I'm thinking about the concept of success, right? And I'm thinking about Eddie Murphy coming to America and the concept of success. And I'm thinking about Leonardo DiCaprio, who's going after this false concept of success, probably with trying to find the diamond. And then there's all kinds of qualifiers of other people's success, with Scarface coming to America to kind of seek that success too. How would you personally define success? Like, what does success, you personally, not what you would preach to others, but what you would find as articulation of success?
Wow. Personally, my success is, how I would define it, is reaching my God-given potential in every area. And a failure to me would be me standing before God and God saying, man, I put so much more in you and you didn't get it out. Wow. So I have a little phrase, I forgot where I got it from, but I would like to die empty. Yeah. I want God to squeeze out everything he's put in me. Yeah. So success is not what I do compared to other people. Yeah. It's what I do compared to what God wants me to do.
Put in you.
And put what he put into to me. And so that's one of the reasons I'm pretty diversified. Some of my friends like, wow, Lee, how can you pastor? How can you be the executive director of Fellowship of Christian Athletes? How can you speak all over the country, write books and all that? Well, because God put it in me. It's a grace that he put in me. And I'm not happy unless I'm being challenged and stretched and making an impact in different areas.
Is there any, obviously, maybe somebody might look at that and go, well, you're just burning the both ends of the candle, right? You're going to burn out. I imagine you've had that issue in your life, right?
Yes. Are there times where I feel a little overwhelmed? Yes. But it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. But here's what having multiple things do for me. Because people ask me, well, are you bivocational? That's kind of how pastors. I say, no, I'm multi-vocational.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Doing multi things or multiple things, it keeps me focused.
Interesting.
It keeps me humbled, and it keeps me dependent on God, because I can't be good at any of those if I'm not completely humbled. And so it really breaks me.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. Yeah. That ultimately by doing multiple things, you're ultimately pushing yourself to a point of dependency.
That's exactly right.
That's really interesting.
That's right.
We have a term that we use around Real called a BOFM, which is that you are not one thing, not the other thing, but you're both of them.
Oh, I love it, both of them.
So, we say that God is not a God of just grace, obviously. He's a God of judgment, too. And how these things hold each other in tension is just such a mystery that God could be both of them, right? And the more I'm living life, the more I'm realizing that, like you said, there was such a push, I think, in the business world to be very focused and to choose one thing. Yes. And the more I study Scripture and the more I study the character of God, he's not about one thing. He's not about just grace, right?
That's exactly right.
So I kind of get what you're saying, that living in that tension actually requires dependency. It requires, it's mystery, to hold all those things together in place. So I can see where what you're talking about as far as the multi-vocational aspect of what you do. That's really cool.
And it is a tension. And but it keeps me focused, and it keeps me broken and humbled and all of that. But it also gives me energy.
Yeah.
Okay. So every now and then I'll have a bad week at church. Something will happen. I mean, just a few weeks ago, one of my elders resigned, just kind of blindsided me. But at the same time, I had the FCA stuff going on, and I had to speak in California, and it's almost as if one area is challenging, the other area is gives me grace, And so it's almost as if God, when I'm challenged in one area, I'm exhilarated in the other one because something good is happening. So it just kind of balances out my life. And I'm just imagine if I was only a pastor, I think I would probably take some of the negatives. It would hurt deeper. Yeah, and or maybe some of the successes I would might get a little overconfident.
Yeah.
God uses all the different things I do to kind of help mold me.
Wow, I think that's so strong. And you see that actually with Saving Private Ryan. I'm looking at that right now, thinking about the fact that he is a school teacher. He's the leader of these men, and then finally there's a scene where they realize they didn't even know, and then they find out he's a school teacher, and this humility that he shares of, hey, I ain't got it together like anybody else, but I'm called to lead you, and we're going to go do this. You can follow me or not. So,
but the scene in Saving Private Ryan that changed my life was at the very end. When the guy, Ryan, who got saved, was walking through the memorial.
Yes.
And he says something, he starts hugging his family, and he basically says, was it all worth it? And meaning that he got saved because other men lost their life because of him. They were trying to save him. And because he got saved, he had a chance to be a husband. He had a chance to be a father. And he basically, I forgot the exact words, but it was, I hope I made it worth it. Because these guys lost their lives.
Sacrifice,
so the sacrifice. And so, it was just a moving scene.
Yeah.
And so I remember my kids were probably 9 or 10 years old, and I just like, you know what, I'm gonna, this father thing, God has given it to me, and this husband thing, and I'm going to be the best I can be, because I don't want any regrets.
Yeah.
So it was just a moving scene for me.
Yeah. And tell us about your kids. You told me earlier you were an empty nester. Yeah. So what have they gone on to do?
Wow, man. I have 3 incredible kids, a 26-year-old daughter who's a graduate of the University of Georgia. Yeah. She's in Los Angeles now. Yeah, go Dogs, even though I don't like the Dogs. But I'll tell you why in a minute. Hey.
Well, you came out of Tennessee, so that was a bad start in the beginning.
That's right, man. Even though I grew up in Georgia, but I don't know why. I just wanted to play outside of the state. But she works for Motown Records.
Wow.
She's in the music industry, wants to be a music executive.
Wow.
Or a entertainment agent. So the best place to do that is New York or L.A. Yeah, so she moved to L.A.
Wow. That's pretty huge.
So she's out there. We were just with her last week. And then I have another son who's 24. He was on a football scholarship at Clemson University.
Okay.
And so he tried out for the pros after his college career was over and didn't make it. But now he's going into the investment business just like his dad. Yeah.
I'm seeing a pattern on that one.
That's right. So great kid.
So he'll end up being a preacher is what we're saying.
Yeah, he probably will, because he's following in my footsteps. And he's like, oh, man, the older I get, the more I'm getting like you, Dad. He said, that's scary. And then my youngest son, I have 2 sons, he's 21. He's also a football player at Arizona State University. Okay. He actually went to Tennessee his first 2 years.
Just like Dad.
Yeah, just like Dad. And just decided that it wasn't the best place for him. And transferred to the West Coast, wanted a whole new scenery and everything. And I said, well, buddy, you got it. Because we went to visit him in July of last year.
Oh,
and
it was
hot. So hot.
Oh, my goodness.
So he's a football player wanting to go into coaching or where he wants to play pro football. Wow. And once that's over, or if he doesn't make it, he would like to be a college or professional football coach.
That's awesome. Very awesome.
Great kids, and been married 28 years.
28?
Yeah,
wow.
28 years,
that's
man.
Good. That's
Got
good.
an incredible wife who's a huge sports fan.
Is she?
Yeah.
That's a bonus.
That's a big bonus. And by the way, because I am multifaceted in terms of the things I do, one of the ways I keep my feet on the ground is my wife.
Yeah.
She's my barometer.
Yeah.
She can tell when I'm getting overly stressed out, when I'm just getting